I was standing on top of a hilltop again with a guide, and there's mist to the side, and there's this portal. And out of the portal were coming these masses of souls. And these are souls that have obviously left the earth plane. They've died and they're passing into the heavenly realms. And some were dressed like, if you could imagine, a fully robed, uh, and some are bright colours, and the shimmering blues and yellows and whites.
Today, I'd like to welcome Stephen Chong to the show. Stephen, welcome to Conscious Conversations.
Oh, Christina, it's an absolute pleasure to be with you across a long expanse of the universe, I must say.
Yes, we're on opposite sides of the world. So thank you for making it such an early morning. It's the afternoon,
Uh, it's
but
fine.
I'm glad we're here. I'm really excited to talk about your near-death experience and what you experienced on the other side. So before we go there, is there any background that you would like to give as to what your life was like before you had your near-death experience?
Sure. As you see, well, you kind of see now. I've got grey on my roof, and I'm in the latter stages of one's life. But prior to my accident, I'd uh, uh, I've been a writer since the age of 50. I've written books and screenplays and things, so it was in the blood. And I've always been an educator, a trainer of people, like coaching, all that sort of stuff. But I'd retired, done. I was again when this event happened about nearly 5 years ago. I'd said, I'm done. I'm retiring. I'm going to plant vegetables in the garden. No more books. No, no more nothing. Um, so that's by way of background. But what happened this particular morning,
Mhm.
as you do when you get a bit older, you still think yourself, you still think you're bulletproof, and you get up on ladders and clean out the gutters in the house. Now, we're very remote here where we are in far north Queensland. No near neighbours, nobody to hear you scream. Um, and yeah, I've fallen. It's about 15 feet off this ladder, and this ladder, you can't see behind me, but there's all these louver windows and there's glass everywhere. The ladder's gone through. I'm on the ground, and I couldn't feel below my neck. I thought, oh, Stephen, you are in trouble here. Um, but as fortune had it, as the gods were to favour, because my wife was here this particular morning, and normally it's a Saturday morning, and normally she's off doing things. But she was here this morning and was able to come to my rescue, and the ambulance came and so forth.
Yeah.
And here I am. And thanks be to the gods. But
Yes.
I've got to tell you, Christina, the great revelations that occurred did not occur at that time of the accident. What happened, I'm in hospital, and then after being, I fractured my neck. So, I was good for nothing for months. But the the revelations consequential of the experience occurred in the period of rehabilitation. So what happened was, I'm on a couch, I can barely move, and I have this title uh, 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 going around in my head, like the afterlife of Journey 2. Now, I knew what it was. I knew it was the universe saying to me, Stephen, there's more for you to do, you know. But got to tell you, like Peter denying the Christ, I've said, no, leave me alone. I am done, man. I am just done. No more. But eventually I've rescinded. I said, okay, because it was like a hamster wheel. I couldn't stop it. And I said, okay, I will write whatever it is you want me to write. But the afterlife, what do I know? I know nothing. And, as soon as I've made that choice to say, okay, I'll do this, when I was capable, I sat in front of the PC and, I've got to tell you, it was amazing. It was like, how do I best describe? It's like tuning a radio dial to the proper frequency. Now, I had no idea what I was going to write. I had no storyboard. I had no character. I had nothing, and I knew nothing basically. Um, and as soon as I sat down, it was, oh, I I I saw the colours, heard the and don't think colours of the rainbow magnified by tenfold. I heard the music, and the music was a part of everything. It was like the grasses and the trees, and it was all music. And I heard through this character whose name is Athar. I saw through his eyes, and he took me to places in the heavenly realms. So I'm seeing through his eyes and hearing his dialogue. And look, honestly, it was like taking dictation. It was an extraordinary journey, an extraordinary gift. And and the whole thing took 3 weeks to write. It was every time because when I when I write, I'm disciplined. I do it very regularly, and I would get up in the morning and say to the spirit, okay, like at 1 o'clock, you're on. And every time, without fail, every time I sat, and I never knew it was coming. I never knew where we're going. I had no idea. And it was there. And I go, wow, my, wow. That's how it happened.
Wow, that is incredible. And I'm really excited to hear about your journey on the other side and what came through. But I'm really curious about something that I want to ask right now. So, you were later in life, this happened 5 years ago. So, I'm imagining 55-ish. And so, for
Thank you
these
very
5
much.
years,
You're my best friend now.
so for all these years, if were you ever exposed to spirituality or things of metaphysical nature, or was this like a brand new experience for you?
That's a very good question. I've been, and just to clarify, and I still like you, but I'm 67 now, so
Oh,
this thing occurred at 62. But to answer your question, yes, I've been a very fortunate man to have been surrounded by the. My mother, for example, was the most beautiful spirit you'd ever, an angelic being, an avatar in many respects, and other aunts and have been gifted in many ways. So I've been surrounded by that and been very aware of that that connection to spirit. But no religion. There's we are. I'm not and never have been, and our family is. We're not religiously in tune, if you will, but spiritually, yes. It's been a part of the fabric of my life. Very fortunately, very thankful for that.
got it. Okay, so this
But
wasn't like overwhelmingly shocking. It was kind of just like, all right, I'll do what you say.
yeah, that's a very good question because the two things I've come to clearly understand from this experience is there was a choice. So, like I've had this accident, and I knew that the choice was, Stephen, yes, you've had an experience, uh, and you can stay doing what you're doing, we, the universe, will still love you. You're okay. But we have a higher purpose for you. But it's a choice. So I had to consciously make that choice. So that was the most important part. And I had the second thing was I had to trust. So and it was an implicit trust because like I said, I knew nothing about really, your things you read, but I knew nothing about heaven and the afterlife really. But I had to trust every time that I sat, it would be there, and it just was. It just was. And the other thing which is really important about these NDEs is that they give you these, imbue you with these superpowers. Well, probably not the best term, but powers, abilities and skills that you never knew you had, latent skills. Now, I knew nothing about the afterlife, yet the universe says, just trust it. Leave it to us. And so it was. So those elements to me were critical in the process, to make the choice and to trust that universal energy, God, if you will, was there in the giving of the gift.
Yeah. Now, I am really excited to hear about this journey and to hear about the other side, but I do want to just pause really quick and ask you, because for me in this lifetime, trusting the universe is very difficult sometimes. And
Yeah.
other times it's not. And sometimes making choices that contribute to my purpose rather than what will be best for me in this world, or what appears to be best for me, those can be difficult. Was this a difficult choice for you? And also, was trusting difficult for you? Or did that just come naturally for you in this situation?
Oh, again, a very good question. Easy is not the right word, but it was just there. And when love stares you in the face, that's probably the best description. And the the interesting thing is, Christina, that what what I understand now through this event and this, I'd call it a process, is that this love from from the spirit world is there all the time. It is never absent. It's and it's not from our personal point of view. It's not a thinking process. We don't have to think that they are there. We don't hope that they are there. We know that they are there, and we listen. You see the difference? So even now, one knows that the spirit guides are there for us all the time. We just have to connect in and then listen to their response. So, like, let me give you an example of that. When I was doing the downloading, the writing, I would sit and go, and I'll leave out the expletive. What the bleep am I going to write about that? I don't know, but but that of itself is a very constructive question. What am I going to do about that? What am I going to write about that? How am I going to approach this problem? See, that question elicits a response which is always there from that world spirit. So we then know that the answer will be there, but we have to tune in. We have to listen. Quiet this silly thing in the middle here, the monkey mind, and then listen to the response. And the interesting thing was, oft times I would sit to write and it was there like immediately. I go, got it. Tap, 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 tap. Some other times I would sit and go, hmm, nothing there. But then I'd go away, have a cup of tea or something, and I'd go, oh, I've got it. Ah, there it is. I'm back, back to writing. But but the essence of that process is the same in any other circumstance. So we've got a dilemma or a problem or something or other. Oh, what am I going to do about that? Tuning in. And then listen. Don't think it through. Listen it through. And then you know what it's like, don't you? You get
I
this
do. I do.
inspiration.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was just
and you
going to
go, wow.
share that's how this podcast came about. So, a year ago, well, a year and a half ago, I lost my job. And so, for about 6 months, I was asking, what do I do? What do I do? I knew that I wasn't supposed to go back into corporate America. And I was driving one day and I'd had the idea of a podcast planted, but one day I was driving and it was just like, do it now, get it going. And I
Mm,
went home that night and I watched a podcast interview with Christian Sundberg. I reached
mm.
out to him without even thinking about it. Like it just came, I just did it. I didn't think, it just happened. And he was my first interview. And that's how it's been. Sometimes I know exactly who to reach out to. And sometimes I'm like, who do I talk to?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah,
like
yeah.
you said. And that's exactly been my experience with this podcast. So I do know how that
That's it. Yeah. So you've got it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's it. But it's the same thing. We can apply that to anything that's going
Yeah.
on in the universal realm. And I've got to tell you, Christina, one of we talk about the things I saw
Mhm.
in the heavenly realms, but one of the things I now understand very clearly is that we all have spiritual guides. All have spiritual guides, and they are never absent. They are, because there's no time and space in the heavenly realms. So if we know in this place in here that they're there, we can call on them and say, hey, I need some help here. They're there. So yeah, that of its own is a price of gold from a living and learning point of view. We know that loving hand of the divine is there for us at all times.
Yeah. It's very comforting to know that even if we're not aware or we forget, we're not alone and we are loved and we can ask for help at any time. So
Yeah.
I'm curious if you would talk about the other side and your journey on the other side.
Oh, okay. Oh my goodness, where do I start? Um, okay, let me give you a bit of background to what came through. And people have asked me whether I was channeling or not. And look, honestly, uh, I I don't know. What I know is this character Athar. I'm seeing through his eyes, and I'm feeling what he's feeling, and he's leading me, yeah, through into these heavenly realms. Um, and by way of background for this character Athar, in forgot to mention that the the language he was speaking to me was like Old English. It was Victorian, like Elizabethan type language. And I'm just an Aussie dude. I don't think think or write like that. But that's how the language came out. That's how he was speaking to me. Um, but in his life, as a child, he was abused under the auspices of the clergy. And later on in his life, he took his own life. So this character, I found him stuck in purgatory. He was stuck in purgatory by virtue of the pain and the shame and the guilt and the anger that he felt, and he couldn't get out. And I saw him. He was in this decrepit house of his own making, and there was a light, a divine light there, but he couldn't see it. And as it progressed, he was able to forgive those that had done these heinous things to him in life, and that released him. He then saw the light and he was taken into these heavenly realms. And from there on, the journey started. But for, forgiveness was the key to unlocking the door from this purgatorial state that he was stuck in. So let me see. The first place he took me to was I called the healing arena. Oh, how do imagine the Roman Colosseum in all its glory, the magnificent stadium. And in the stadium were masses of people, souls. Uh, and they're all, I'll talk about the robes later, but all these beautiful coloured robes. They've all been summoned into this arena. And I'm sitting with, as a thought, I'm sitting watching this, and there's a master spirit, there's a guide with us. And what I saw with inside this arena were these repose like sofa lounges. You go, what the? And in walked these they're seraphim, small angelic beings, and they've got in charge how would I best describe a decrepit soul, like malformed. The spirit's been is disabled and deformed, and these each seraph took their charge and placed them on a lounge chair, and this lounge chair just kind of enfolded them, and in walked this angelic being. Oh, a beautiful golden white robes, and he stood in the middle of the arena, and he held up his hands, and he started to take the audience is chanting the Om sound. So this Om sound is reverberating around the arena. And this angel holds up his hands, and he sort of takes the energy from the crowd and he weaves it into like a ball, like a disco ball. And out from this ball shone this like laser lights into each soul onto the lounge chairs. Oh, I'm watching this and describing best I can. And and then the angel sort of finished, and he packed up his magnetic ball and off he went. And each soul then rose up. They stood up and they were completely whole, totally healed. And like I turned to a guide person and said, like, what just happened? And what was described was souls in heaven do not bear the burdens that have been imposed by others. So if I do bad things to you, cause you harm and disfigurement of spirit, uh, uh, in the spirit world, you are relieved of those burdens. You don't carry those sins into the heavenly realms. So they're taken away from you. Me, on the other hand, because I've caused you harm, done bad things to you, I would suffer the consequences of those actions. There would be some recompense for that. But that was the healing arena. That was just the most majestic, one of the most majestic things that I saw and described.
Wow, that's really fascinating. So, in other interviews that I've seen you in, you talk about levels to heaven. Is that the first level?
Yeah, that's a good question. There were other levels that I was taken to. Let me give you a, a descriptor. And by way of background, like through Athar's eyes, we're meeting different souls, and you're having interactions and being taken to places. And you know what happened? Every time I met a new soul, I'd say, "What's your name?" And immediately I would get the name straight away. I would have it straight away. But there was another case where this, oh, how do I describe this majestic soul, young in the prime of life, white, beautiful robes. And as soon as I met him, I said, "What's your name?" Nothing. Couldn't get it. 3 times in 3 different locations did I ask, "What's your name?" Never got it. In the book, I've called him the master. Now, this master took us sort of wrapped the arms around and took us up to these through clouds and up through higher levels, up to this majestic area where like on a vast hilltop, and we're looking down on the expanse and the glory of the universe, the heavenly realms. So we went up through these different. He took us up to these different. He took us to a place of total majesty. Like think Greco-Romano, marble, alabaster, beautiful gardens and colours. And this was his house, and he was like this. It was described to me that he was like the master of this vast domain. If that, it sounds really kind of out there, but that's what I saw. But yes, we would, and mind you, I've got to tell you, I was also taken to much lower levels, which we can talk about if you wish. But
Yeah.
so
I
we
was
will.
actually just going to ask you about, you had this experience of seeing and feeling and experiencing heaven on various levels. And so I was noticing a curiosity about if you learned anything about hell or, as you said, lower level.
Yeah, again, that's a very good question. And my understanding now is there is no hell. It's all heaven. There is never an absence of the divine wherever one goes in the heavenly realms. But there's a big but here. Some of the places that I was taken to, you just don't want to be in. Um, but there was never an absence of love or the divine hand in any of the realms that I was taken to. Now, I don't know what I don't know. I don't know where I didn't go, if that makes sense. I can only describe what I was shown. But um, with a guide, I was taken, and if you could picture like an area where a bushfire has gone through, it's burnt and the acrid and it's ash, and we're walking through this area, and it's kind of horrible. Now the acrid smell of uh, uh, this fire, and we entered this huge portal, and we go inside and say we, like through Athar's eyes, and there's this master guide with me, and inside this portal were these huge vortices of power, spinning vortexes, and I turned to God and said, "What is this place? It's horrible." And it's standing around each vortex were these angelic beings, beautiful, yeah, angelic souls. And inside each vortex, souls were entrapped. So some were clambering to get out and others pulling them down. I even saw some come out. And I turned to the guide, "What is this place? It's horrible." And what was described is this is not God's hellfire or judgment. Each soul is entrapped in this vortex of power by their own choice. Think of the 7 deadly sins: pride, greed, lust, envy, wrath, those things. That souls were entrapped by their own choice from this power, with this power. And until they were able to be contrite, until they were able to repent and say, I'm sorry, and be contrite, then that released them from this power, grip of power, and they were taken away by the angelic hosts who were waiting for them. But
Yeah.
extraordinary. Honestly, Christina, I could not make this up even if I was on drugs.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Well, a lot of the stuff that you've shared, I've heard in other near-death experience stories, like when you were explaining the majestic, where he took you up to the higher majestic place and it was all marble. And what I have understood about, I want to use my words wisely here, but I don't want to say hellish like NDEs, but NDEs that weren't all just light, was that once they understood that they could choose, or that their mind could take them to a different place, that's when the experience shifted for them. And so everything you're saying is lining up with the hundreds and hundreds of stories that I've heard from various
yes, yes,
experiences.
yes. That's very interesting. I think in summary, we create our own hell or heaven.
Mm.
So we experience what we've created for ourselves. Let me give you another descriptor. Um, Again, taken to this place again with another guiding soul, and Athar, he had to confront what happened to him in the part in his life, and he he was taken. We were taken through this cavern, horrible screams and snakes and vermin type around, and he had to traverse through this area, and he was very fearful, but he went through, and at the end of this cavern, he found the the priest, the person that had done the heinous things to him. So this person, this soul, had created a circumstance. He was so afraid of the retribution of what was going to happen to him for the terrible things that he had done. He'd created this, like a hell around him, so people wouldn't find him, if that makes sense. But Athar, in his grace, forgave this priest, and that released the priest from the circumstance that he had created for himself. But so there are some terrible places that I saw, but the keys to unlocking such the understanding, like the forgiveness and the love that is there, was the more profound experience from what I
Yeah.
saw.
And I love that we've landed here, because you did mention this before and I wanted to comment, but I didn't want to interrupt the story. And what you mentioned was forgiveness. And I am a student and teacher of A Course in Miracles, and the entire course is around forgiveness. So I'm curious if you learned anything about forgiveness, or what would you say, how would you describe forgiveness and why it's so important?
Let me let me.
Straight up.
Again, it's a very good question, and let me give you a bit of background to the answer. After I'd finished writing the book, I'm into edit phase. So the book's done, it's written, and I've read it 100 times in edit. And one morning I've awoken, and like the little things in my head going, Stephen, you've missed something. Read it again. Read it again. What? Okay. I read it again, and I read the text again, and it was like reading the text with like with one of those highlighter pens. These these, and I called them the laws of heaven and earth that stood out to me, and I just like they bounced out to me, and I saw them, and I found 15 of them embedded in the text. And to the point, let's get back to answering your question. And I'll read this one to you, and I've got it here. This is law number law number 8. Forgiveness is at the heart of your ultimate realization. Forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, and it was so evident through Athar's journey that his ability to forgive others and himself was the key to unlocking his evolution, his journey up into the higher realms of heaven. So absolutely, forgiveness is the key.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And when I was younger, before I started my journey to returning back to myself, I didn't want to forgive certain people. And when I started learning the course, what I realized was that my lack of forgiveness, by me not forgiving, is actually holding me in captivity here in this reality.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that forgiving is really forgiving for ourselves and of ourselves too.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it exactly. And in the Father's case, that forgiveness unlocked for him his ability to move higher up into the heavenly realms. Let me preface that with understanding of what I saw and how things happen. When after we passed through, what I saw were these huge mists, and through these mists of judgment. So where the life review occurs, the life flashes before our eyes, and we see what we've done for and to others. And if I could picture, I was standing on top of a hilltop again with a guide, and these mists are to the side, and there's this portal. Out of the portal were coming these masses of souls. And these are souls that have obviously left the earth plane. They've died and they're passing into the heavenly realms. And some were dressed like, if you could imagine a fully robed, uh, and some are bright colours and the shimmering blues and yellows and whites, and others were dark hessian, browny, yucky colours. And what I understand, when and every soul passing into the heavenly realm was greeted by a guide. Nobody was left on their own. But the colours of the robes, the judgment of heaven, what we have done to and for others, is reflected in the robes. So other souls can look at the robes and know exactly what we need. In love. Love is the key. They know exactly what we need. And the colours of the robes designate the pathway that is uniquely theirs. So what I saw, to give you a descriptor, was this female soul. She'd come out and she'd dressed in dark, browny, yucky colours, and she tried to go up on a pathway that she thought was her boon, that was her reward. But she was unable to do so. She could not go there. Some force held her back. 3 times did she try a different route. Couldn't do it. Eventually, there was a pathway that where it went, I don't know. wasn't shown, but she had to go down on a pathway that was uniquely hers. So she must have done some not so good things in life. But the majesty of the experience is to know that when we pass through these mists, we're enveloped in these clothes, these robes that designate where we go in the heavenly realms. But it is not an eternal damnation. This is an evolutionary process. The judgment of heaven is neither vindictive or eternal, but probationary and remedial. So, yes, we've got to follow this pathway, but the love, the divine light is always there for us. Forgiveness, all that stuff we talked about. An amazing journey to see this stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like quite a journey. And I'm curious because I know that you mentioned that you were getting downloads and you were writing about this, and you said it happened over about 3 weeks. And so within each session or journey that you had in between, were you talking about this with anyone? Or were you just kind of stunned and in your own world? I'm curious about your experience in between these amazing, metaphysical journeys that you took and what you
Again, very good question. As I mentioned before, once I committed to the process, and through my apprenticeship as an author, and I call it apprenticeship because I'd written 5 books beforehand, but I had to be very disciplined. So, get up in the morning, say, okay, 1 o'clock, you're on. You got things to do, Stephen. Go and live, whatever you want to do. But what I was doing was preparing spirit to say, okay, this is your time. And generally, what I found was that I couldn't do more than 2 hours because my head started to hurt. I'd get tired and I needed alcohol. Oh, that's another story. Don't go there. But um, but every day I couldn't, because it was so beautiful. What I was seeing and hearing and learning was so profound that I had to do it every day. So there was an hour or two every day that I specifically allotted for the purpose of the writing process, and I would tune out. So I would anything that, but no phones, no beeping and buzzing at me, like having a cone of silence over my head. So there were no interruptions, but that was just part of the process. So yes, to answer your question, it was such a profound journey that I kind of had to do it quickly because it was there to do. It's like unwrapping a gift.
Yeah, it sounds really intense, and just like I'm over here listening to your story and I'm just like, wow, I want to experience that. Like, how do I?
Well, yeah, I hear you. To what I've learned subsequently, the importance of and I do it every day religiously now. I tune in, and I listen. So specifically, make time. 5 minutes. Yesterday, I spent an hour and I just tuned out. You know, nice, beautiful music in my head, and tune out to the universe. No expectations, but I know I'm tuning in, and it's like recharging the batteries, isn't it? If I can go, oh man, that was cool. Um, no specific, and if there are any dilemmas or challenges in life, I would go in there with a question: what do I do about that? How do I fix? And like we were talking about before, that listening and the inspiration, always, always, and to know that the inspiration will come. It may not be immediate, but it will come.
Yeah. I'm glad
when
you,
the mind's quiet.
yeah, I'm glad you said that it might not be immediate, because I know some of the clients I work with, and I used to be like this myself, where I would go into a meditation and I'd come out like I got nothing.
Mm, mm.
And I would get frustrated. So I love that you included that. And I'm curious, what, so after, well, first, is there any more of your journey that we haven't covered?
Oh, yeah. Oh, Kristen, I've got to tell you one that comes to mind.
Okay.
Oh, gee. I was taken to what I called the school for children. Now, imagine again with a guide, we enter this, and don't think a building like just a regular house. This is majestic. And we enter this building, and the love that I felt when I walked into this building, even now it gives me chills. I can still feel it. We entered this building, and there are these beautiful angelic beings, mostly dressed in like blue, like a darker blue, as I remember. And they're tending to these babes in arms, fledgling soul, children that have left the earth plane early. This is where they are so beautifully nurtured by the Heavenly Father in his heavenly realm. No child, no child is left untended by the majesty of the divine. It was, that say it was like being wrapped. The love was like being wrapped in a warm blanket, and every child who leaves the earth plane early is so beautifully nurtured by the Heavenly Father and his angels. Uh, even if the relationship between the parent and the child is somewhat fractious, doesn't it didn't matter. Every child is brought to the prime of their spiritual health, their well-being in this. And I say I've called in my simple mind, I've called it the school for children because that's what it was. But God forbid that one would lose a child early. That would be devastating. But to know that that beautiful soul is so tended by the Heavenly Father and his angels is a boon to the grief. That was one of the most majestic things or
Yeah.
places that I was taken to.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I actually have a couple of friends that too, that their babies were born and they left this earth very, very
Mhm. Mhm.
shortly, within a couple of months.
Yes,
And so
yes.
I noticed that I felt comforted by hearing that. And I'm going
Yes.
to share this episode with them for sure.
Oh,
Now,
to be sure. Yeah.
because you mentioned that, I'm curious if you did you learn anything or see anything or experience anything having to do with reincarnation?
Now that's again another very good question, and the answer is no. Um, now, I like you. I think I believe in reincarnation as a part of the process, but I did not see. I was not shown anything to do with reincarnation. No, I was shown and did my best to describe how uh, uh, angelic beings come down to Earth and do their best to impact, to help, to assist. Uh, uh, but reincarnation was one of the things that I was not shown. So I could only give you what I believe, but not what I
So,
experienced. Yeah.
got it. And so when
Oh,
you say angelic beings come down to assist, I'm curious if you could say more about that. My first thought was, do they incarnate in human bodies? Like, is there actually a thing called a human angel? Is that a real thing?
and again, I didn't see that, but what I saw was um, these humans interacting in life, and there was some bad stuff going on, and these angelic beings were doing their best to intervene to stop some difficult, call them atrocities, but some bad things happen. They were doing their best to intervene. But Christina, I've got to tell you, one of the other profound areas, similar in its experience, what I saw, and I called it the abode of reunion. Again, taken to picture it, I'm standing on top of a hilltop with a guide, and there's a mass of souls on this dale, and they're in communion with, like, talk, and some of the souls have these silver cords running. There was these mists, the mist we talked about before. They were running over the mist, not through the mist. They're running over the mist. And I turned to this guy and said, like, what is this place? He said, this is where souls on earth, when we sleep, where our soul is able to come over and commune with loving kin. We've got a dilemma or something, a problem. We're able to, this loving person, this loving soul is there, able to guide, assist, give us some assistance as to what to do. And then, of course, when the body wakes up, what I saw was that soul like zipped across back to the mist, back into the body. I thought, wow, that is just so cool, to know that, like, these loving souls are on the other side, and we're able to visit them when we're in the sleep mode. And I'm certain that, we all know that sometimes when we're asleep, we've gone to bed with a problem, and we awaken and we go, oh, I've got it. That's the answer. Guess where we've been?
Yes. Wow. That really confirmed some things for me. Actually. Because a lot happens for me when I'm sleeping. And so I just loved hearing that part of what you experienced and what you saw in your journey. And I know we've been talking for a while, so I'm sure all of your experiences are in your book, but I'm curious how, so this was 5 years ago that this happened and that you wrote your book. How has your life changed since then?
Oh my goodness. Now there's a profound question. I let me give you the wouldn't say diametrically opposite to how I was living before, but it's like a blooming of flower. The lotus has opened up. The learnings one has I've received from these laws of heaven and earth, they've become like a part of your DNA. They become part of your life and you live them. So I know now that if I do bad things to you with intent, the consequences for me are going to be grave. And I don't want to go there. But to really answer your question, two things stand out for me. Uh, I now have no fear of the passing process. Hopefully it's a few days away. It's a little while away yet, but but I have no fear of passing over because I know what awaits. The other more as profound thing, about just over 12 months ago, I lost my beautiful mother. Now she was, like I said at the beginning, she was just such a beautiful angelic being. I chose well when I come to Earth, put it that way. And ever since I was a lad, I thought, Mum, when you go, I'm not staying. I'm not hanging around. I'm going where you're going. It was like a part of my DNA. And, after their passing, one feels grief for her loss, her presence, her loss, but that grief is totally enabling, totally enabling. It says, Stephen, you're a wonderful being. You have a divine purpose to fulfill. I know exactly where she's gone, into the higher heavenly realms. I know where she is, and I know where to find her, in here. So whilst that grief, it's a grief of loss, yes, but that grief is totally enabling to say, Stephen, Christina, you are here. I am. I'm here. Go forward. Do good. Be grand as you are. Total. To know these things and to feel them and to experience them is such a great gift.
Wow. That's so beautiful. And I'm sorry for your loss, but I am feeling, I can feel the presence of her in my heart
Yeah.
as well. So that's really uh, so I'm curious because I do have a couple of questions that I ask all my guests, but before we go there, I'm curious if there's anything else that you want to share or have to offer the audience today that may not have been said already.
Well, probably, Christina, the best thing is just go to my website, and on the website you find these laws of heaven and earth as a download, so people can get on there and just download free. I don't care about charge, but just download the laws of heaven and earth. Look at them, you know, make them a part of your life, because for mine, they have made such a profound difference to my ongoing journey. And I must say, um, because you're young and in your prime, I'm older now, and with grey on the roof. There's a sense of urgency for me now to speak the message, tell people what's there. But if one had known these things back at a younger age, the bloom of the rose would have been much more profound, and you live life to the full for a longer period of time, if that makes sense. So I encourage people, just get onto my website and they can download these laws of heaven and use them to benefit, because they're a gift given from the heavenly realms.
Yes. Yes. And thank you for sharing that gift with us. I will be sure to include the link to your site in the description of the show. And so with that, I'll just ask you the three questions. So the first question that I ask all my guests is, how would you define God?
Ooh, love. The Christina, what I mentioned right at the beginning, right when wherever I went in this heavenly realm, there was never an absence of the divine. Even in those lower regions we talked about, there was a divine light there always. So um, I think that's true. That's in the heavenly realms. The same as here for us. There is never an absence of the divine. There is an absence of listening to the divine, but there is never an absence of that presence. So that's the best way I can describe. I mean, when I was standing on top of this, we talked about before, on top of this hilltop, we're looking on this matrix of light and love. What I saw was, up in the higher realms, it was a light, and just a sheer light, and you go down a bit, and it was a bit darker, but there was never an absence of light, never, which is love.
Thank you. The second question is, what would you say is the purpose of life?
Oh. To recognize our spiritual essence. And I'll read to you one of the laws to answer that question. Law number 12: to know that you are sacred is not to see new things in you, but to see yourself as you really are. To, to me, that, so the purpose of life is to recognize that sense of divinity within, to know that we are sacred and to live that sacredness.
Thank you. And the final question is, if you could take one piece of wisdom that you have now and offer it to any younger version of yourself, what would that one piece of wisdom be?
Oh my goodness. How how fantastic are you? I've over the past, I don't know, months now, I kept seeing myself back when I was a teen. And you look back and go, oh man, you're a bit gawky then, Seb. But but to look back at oneself in the younger years and go, look at what you've become. How majestic have you become? But if you had known that back then, life would have been substantially different. So it's only taken 50 years to recognize that. But but if we were able to know that, to recognize that in those younger years, that's the rose blooming much earlier.
Thank you. That's so beautiful. And other than your website, how do people find you and get a hold of you if they want to get in touch?
Oh, Christina, probably the say the websites, if they want to contact me directly, there's the usual email-y things on there. But if people want to buy the book, best to go to their their the usual book depositories, Amazon, Topia, whatever they are. Just Google The Afterlife, A Journey To, and they'll find the book. Or I say, get onto my website and that'll link them to where they can best buy the book.
Awesome. I'll put your website and the link to the book in the description of the show. What were
Cool.
you
Thank
gonna
you. Thank you very much. Yeah, yeah. Thank
say?
you. Thank you. I've got to tell you one other thing, Christina, before we go.
Yes.
Uh, um, one of the one of the things that's challenged me since writing the book, because like you investigate these NDEs, and I've gone, why did it happen in this format? Why was it given to you in such this gift in such a format? I mean, other people go off and experience, taken up to a heavenly realm, and they see their body floating, all that majestic stuff. But what I understand now from this experience is that when we read a book of this, a gift of this nature, it becomes, we can look at it through different levels. Like we can read a book and go, oh, yeah, that's good, that's bad, or I like, I don't like. We're reading it literally. But to deeper levels, we can read a story and we find the metaphysical. We like the laws of heaven and earth, the universal laws are declared. But more profoundly than that, this gift, this book, what it does is can open up the mystical level within us. So we read the book and go, oh man, I've got that. That's it. That's unlocking
Yeah.
the mystical within. So the experience for the reader becomes subjective. It's not someone else that's had an NDE and have come back and told the story. It's the reader that's experienced their own divinity, their own truth. And that to me is the key to the gift that I've been given. If people read the book and they go, oh man, I have just got that. That's it. And therein lies the gift of the experience.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And again, I'll be sure to include the link to your book. I actually haven't read it yet, but I'm going to go grab it right now because now I just can't wait to have that experience as I read through your creation. And I just want to say, Stephen, thank you so much for having the courage to share your experience, for saying yes, for trusting and writing the book, and also for appearing on my podcast as well as other podcasts to share these wonderful and amazing experiences that you've had to help raise the consciousness of our world. So it's been such an honor, such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Serena, it's an absolute pleasure, and thanking you for having me on your program.
I would like to personally thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you haven't already, please be sure to like this episode, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so that you never miss a beat. And if you really resonated with this content, please share it with all of your friends so that collectively we can expand our consciousness. Have a very blessed week.